Welcome to Family Secrets Unveiled, where we delve into the hidden corners of human experience, unearthing tales that linger long after the final word. Today, we journey into a story so deeply interwoven with faith and the shadows of confession that it challenges everything we believe about sanctity and sin. Imagine a small, devout community, nestled deep within a landscape of rolling hills and ancient trees, a place where whispers carried more weight than spoken words, and the church steeple was not just a landmark, but the very heart of existence. Here, in this seemingly idyllic setting, we find Father Michael, a man whose presence exuded an aura of calm authority, his eyes holding the wisdom of countless souls he had guided through life's treacherous paths. He was a pillar, a confidant, the keeper of sacred vows and unspoken truths. But even the holiest of men can become entangled in webs far more complex than their sacred duties suggest. And then, there was Elara. Elara, a woman of striking, almost ethereal beauty, yet with a fragility that seemed to cling to her like a second skin. Her eyes, the color of a stormy sea, held a depth of sorrow that no smile could truly mask. She moved with a quiet grace, her presence in the pews a constant, almost ghostly fixture. Everyone in the parish knew Elara, but no one truly knew her. She was a woman of routine, attending every service, her head bowed in prayer, her hands clasped so tightly that her knuckles often turned white. Yet, for all her devoutness, Elara never confessed. Not once, in all the years Father Michael had served that parish, had she ever entered the confessional booth. It was an anomaly, a silent question mark hanging over her otherwise impeccable devotion. People noticed, of course. In a community where shared secrets were the currency of connection, Elara's impenetrable reserve was a source of endless speculation. Was it piety so profound it required no absolution? Or was it something far more unsettling, a darkness so profound it dared not be whispered even to God's chosen intermediary? Father Michael, for his part, tried not to dwell on it. His calling was to offer guidance and forgiveness, not to pry. Yet, Elara's unspoken secrets, her silent suffering, had a way of seeping into his thoughts. He would see her during communion, her face luminous in the flickering candlelight, and wonder what burdens she carried so silently. He had seen countless souls laid bare in the confessional, heard sins both petty and profound, witnessed the raw agony of regret and the sweet relief of absolution. But Elara remained an enigma. There was an incident, years ago, when a young, eager altar boy, fascinated by Elara's consistent absence from confession, had innocently asked Father Michael why she never sought forgiveness. Father Michael, with a gentle smile, had simply said, "God works in mysterious ways, my son. Some find their peace through direct communion." But even as he spoke the words, a tiny seed of doubt had been planted in his own heart. He knew, with a certainty that transcended mere intuition, that Elara carried a secret of immense weight. A secret so burdensome, so profoundly woven into the fabric of her being, that even the sanctity of the confessional, the promise of divine mercy, could not compel her to speak it aloud. It was a silent challenge to his faith, a testament to the complex labyrinth of the human soul. And then, one rainy Tuesday, a day much like any other, a strange occurrence began to unfold, slowly, almost imperceptibly, that would shatter the tranquility of their quiet parish and reveal the insidious truth about Elara's unspoken burdens. The first threads of a tapestry woven with deceit and despair began to emerge, not from Elara's lips, but from the most unexpected of sources. A series of seemingly innocuous events, small ripples in the placid waters of their lives, began to coalesce, drawing Father Michael into a mystery far deeper and darker than any he had ever encountered. It was as if the very stones of the church were beginning to whisper, carrying fragments of a tale Elara had desperately tried to bury. The community had always prided itself on its closeness, a comforting blanket of shared histories and interwoven lives. But beneath that veneer of unity, like roots beneath solid ground, lay a network of unspoken observations, tiny pieces of information exchanged over fences and whispered during bake sales. And in this intricate web, Elara's peculiar habits stood out. Her house, perched on the edge of the parish woods, was always impeccably kept, its curtains perpetually drawn, casting an air of perpetual twilight within. No visitors ever darkened her doorstep, and she politely, yet firmly, declined every invitation to social gatherings. She was a solitary figure, a phantom moving through their midst, present yet perpetually absent. It was the kind of isolation that begged for explanation, the kind of silence that screamed loudest of all. And Father Michael, with his keen understanding of human nature, began to notice these subtle discordant notes in Elara's symphony of solitude. He observed the way her gaze would flicker towards the small, ornate crucifix above the altar, a fleeting intensity in her eyes that was less devotion and more terror. He saw the faint tremors in her hands as she received communion, a barely perceptible trembling that suggested a soul constantly on the brink. These were not the signs of a woman at peace with her God or herself. These were the hallmarks of a soul in torment, a heart held captive by an unspeakable past. The stage was set, not for a simple confession, but for an unraveling, a slow, agonizing revelation of secrets that had festered in the dark for far too long. And Father Michael, unknowingly, was about to become the reluctant discoverer of a truth he never wished to bear. The first tremor in the carefully constructed facade of Elara's life came in the form of a recurring dream Father Michael began to have. It wasn't a prophetic vision, but rather a persistent, unsettling image, a faint, almost imperceptible stain on the pristine white altar cloth, growing larger with each passing night, yet disappearing the moment he awoke. He dismissed it as a byproduct of his subconscious, perhaps the anxieties of his calling manifesting in symbolic ways. But the dream persisted, and with it, a growing unease. Then a more concrete event occurred. Mrs. Henderson, a kindly but notoriously gossipy woman, approached Father Michael after a Sunday service, her voice a hushed conspiratorial whisper. "Father," she began, her eyes darting nervously towards Elara's retreating figure, "I found this near Elara's garden path, just off the main road." She held out a small, tarnished silver locket. It was old, intricately engraved, and snapped shut with a tiny, almost invisible clasp. "It must have fallen from her pocket," Mrs. Henderson continued, "but when I tried to return it, she acted strange. Said it wasn't hers, then snatched it from my hand and rushed inside." Father Michael took the locket, feeling its cold weight in his palm. It was undoubtedly antique, and the engraving, though worn, depicted a delicate rose. He had seen Elara wear no such jewelry. The incident, small as it was, felt significant. It was a crack in her armor, a momentary lapse in her carefully maintained aloofness. Why deny ownership of something so clearly personal, then react with such unexpected vehemence? Later that week, another piece of the puzzle presented itself. During a routine visit to the parish library, Father Michael noticed a series of books missing from the local history section. Specifically, books detailing the old families of the region, and one in particular, a collection of local newspaper clippings from decades past. He recalled Elara's quiet, almost furtive visits to the library, always lingering in the history section, though he had never seen her actually check out a book. He made a mental note, a flicker of suspicion sparking in his mind. The following day, while tending to the church gardens, he found a delicate, pressed forget-me-not tucked into the pages of an old hymn book left on a pew. It was a tiny detail, but the flower felt out of place, a sentimental artifact in a starkly practical setting. As he gently extracted it, a name written in faded ink on the margin of the page caught his eye, Lydia. A name he didn't recognize. He found himself thinking of Elara, her silent suffering, her withdrawn nature. Could these seemingly disparate events be connected? The tarnished locket, the missing history books, the pressed flower with a forgotten name, they began to weave a subtle, almost imperceptible narrative, drawing Father Michael further into Elara's shrouded past. His pastoral duties now felt intertwined with a growing sense of responsibility, a silent summons to uncover the truth. He began to observe Elara more closely, not out of judgment, but out of a deep-seated concern. He noticed the way she flinched whenever the church bells chimed, a subtle spasm of fear that passed quickly, but was undeniably there. He saw her once, standing by the old gravestones in the churchyard, her back to him, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. When he called out to her, she had spun around, her face blotchy and tear-stained, her expression a mixture of panic and shame. "Father, I was just praying," she stammered, her voice thin and reedy. But her eyes told a different story, a story of profound grief, or perhaps profound regret. He offered comfort, but she politely, yet firmly, refused, retreating once again into her self-imposed shell. The incident left him deeply troubled. He knew, instinctively, that her tears were not simply prayers of devotion. They were the tears of a woman haunted by something terrible, something that had left an indelible mark on her soul. The weight of Elara's secrets began to press down on Father Michael. He felt an almost visceral need to understand, to help. He spent hours in the quiet solitude of his study, poring over old parish records, looking for any mention of Lydia or any event that might shed light on Elara's peculiar behavior. He found nothing concrete, only more questions. The missing books from the library continued to bother him. He decided, against his usual practice, to make a discreet inquiry. He spoke to the librarian, a woman named Agnes who had served the community for decades and possessed an encyclopedic memory for local lore. "Agnes," he began casually, "have you noticed any unusual borrowing patterns recently, perhaps concerning our local history section?" Agnes, ever observant, paused, her brow furrowed in thought. "Well, Father," she said slowly, "I did notice Elara often browsing those books. She never checked them out, no, but I did see her with a rather old, leather-bound journal, one that belonged to the Miller family, I believe. It was a private collection, kept behind the counter, only for reference. She asked to look at it for quite some time, said she was researching local architecture. But I distinctly remember her taking notes, very detailed ones, from the latter half of the journal." The Miller family. The name rang a faint bell, a prominent family from the founding days of the parish, their grand estate now overgrown and crumbling on the outskirts of town. A private journal, detailed notes, architectural research. It sounded plausible, yet something about it felt off. Father Michael's unease grew. The locket, the missing books, the pressed flower, Elara's furtive behavior, her tears, the mention of the Miller family journal, they were all disparate fragments, yet they formed a mosaic of discomfort, pointing towards a hidden narrative. He felt a chill creep down his spine. It was no longer just about Elara's spiritual well-being, it was about something deeper, something potentially dangerous. He had a profound sense that he was on the precipice of uncovering a truth that would shake the very foundations of their quiet community. The secrets Elara held were not just personal burdens, they were threads in a larger, darker tapestry, slowly, inexorably, beginning to unravel. The image of the growing stain on his dream altar cloth returned, more vivid and unsettling than ever. He knew, with a certainty that settled like a cold stone in his stomach, that he was about to step into a darkness he had only ever encountered in the abstract realm of sin and confession. The pursuit of Elara's secrets became an obsession for Father Michael, overshadowing his daily duties. The dream of the growing stain on the altar cloth had escalated, now featuring a shadowy figure lurking just beyond the periphery, always just out of reach. He felt a profound urgency, a premonition that time was running out. He decided he needed to see the Miller family journal for himself. Armed with a plausible excuse about researching historical church architecture, he revisited Agnes at the library. This time, he specifically requested the Miller journal. Agnes retrieved it, a thick, leather-bound volume, its pages brittle with age. He flipped through it, past entries about crop yields and societal gatherings, until he reached the latter half, the section Elara had focused on. It was there, amidst seemingly mundane observations, that he found it, a series of terse, almost coded entries, scrawled in a delicate, feminine hand. They spoke of a terrible mistake, a burden on the soul, and repeatedly the name Lydia. The entries were not a direct confession, but a diary of torment. The author, A young woman named Clara Miller spoke of a forbidden love, a clandestine affair with a man from a different social standing. She recounted secret meetings, whispered promises, and then the devastating discovery of her pregnancy. The Miller family, proud and unyielding, would never accept such a disgrace. The journal detailed the desperate attempts to conceal the truth, the growing desperation as her condition became impossible to hide. Then, the most chilling entries, a plan, hatched in secrecy, to send Clara away to a distant relative, a place where she could give birth in isolation. But before she left, there was a final, agonizing entry describing a terrible sacrifice to preserve the family name. The child, a girl, was born and given the name Lydia. And then, abruptly, the entries stopped. The remaining pages were blank. Father Michael's hands trembled as he closed the journal. Lydia. The name from the pressed flower. The locket with the rose engraving, a symbol of forbidden love. It was all beginning to click into place, forming a picture far more sinister than he had imagined. He returned the journal to Agnes, his mind reeling. He needed to speak to Elara, but he knew a direct confrontation would only drive her further into her shell. He decided on a different approach. He visited her house, not with the intention of grilling her, but simply to offer comfort, to let her know he was there. He found her in her meticulously kept garden, tending to a patch of forget-me-nots, her back to him. When she turned, her eyes, usually guarded, held a raw vulnerability he hadn't seen before. Elara, he began softly, I've been thinking about something you once said. About secrets, and the weight they carry. Her breath hitched. He continued, sometimes, the greatest burden is not the secret itself, but the silence that surrounds it. The belief that speaking it aloud will destroy everything. He watched her carefully. She slowly knelt, her fingers tracing the delicate petals of a forget-me-not. Some secrets, she whispered, her voice barely audible, are better left buried, Father. For the sake of others. He sat beside her, gently, and pulled out the pressed forget-me-not he had found in the hymn book. Do you remember this, Elara? He asked, holding it out. Her eyes widened, a flicker of recognition, then pain. Lydia, she breathed, the name a fractured cry. And then, the dam broke. Not in a flood of words, but in a torrent of choked sobs. Elara began to speak, disjointedly at first, fragments of a nightmare she had carried for decades. She was not Clara, but Clara's sister. A younger sister, forced into complicity by her domineering parents, sworn to absolute secrecy. She recounted the shame, the fear, the desperate measures taken to hide Clara's pregnancy. The Miller family, desperate to avoid scandal, had orchestrated a cruel deception. Clara was indeed sent away, but not to give birth in peace. She was sent to an institution, her fragile mental state unable to cope with the trauma, where she tragically died shortly after Lydia's birth. Lydia, the innocent child of forbidden love, was then taken by the Millers and presented to the community as Elara's niece, a distant relative entrusted to her care. Elara, a young woman herself, was forced to raise Lydia as her own, forever bound by a lie that consumed her life. The silver locket, Elara revealed, contained a tiny, faded photograph of Clara, taken before the tragedy, and a lock of Lydia's baby hair. I never confessed, Elara whispered, her voice raw with grief, because my confession would have implicated the dead and ruined the living. It would have shamed Lydia, who never knew the truth of her birth. I bore the sin alone, Father. All these years. Father Michael listened, his heart heavy with the weight of her confession. The image of the shadowy figure in his dreams, the one always just out of reach, suddenly made horrifying sense. It wasn't a demon, it was the ghost of Clara, the truth of Lydia's lineage, the specter of a secret that had consumed 2 generations. The stain on the altar cloth was the indelible mark of their unspoken suffering. The climax wasn't a sudden explosion, but a slow, agonizing unburdening, a revelation that shattered not just Elara's world, but Father Michael's understanding of faith, forgiveness, and the silent sacrifices made in the name of family. He realized the depth of her courage, the unimaginable strength it took to carry such a burden in solitude, all for the sake of a child's reputation. The true horror wasn't the sin itself, but the dehumanizing fear that had driven a family to such extreme, tragic measures. The quiet, devout Elara, who never confessed, was in fact the most profound penitent he had ever encountered, her entire life a silent act of penance and protection. The weight lifted from Elara's shoulders that day, though the scars of her decades-long silence would undoubtedly remain. Father Michael, in turn, found himself profoundly changed by her story. He had witnessed the raw, agonizing truth of human sacrifice, not in the grand narratives of saints, but in the quiet, desperate act of a woman protecting an innocent from a past too painful to bear. He didn't offer immediate absolution in the traditional sense, for Elara's confession was not a request for forgiveness of her own sin, but a revelation of a burden she had chosen to carry. Instead, he offered her something perhaps more profound: understanding, compassion, and the promise of solidarity. He held her hand, a simple gesture that conveyed a world of unspoken empathy. He assured her that Lydia, now a vibrant young woman married and living in a neighboring town, was living a full, happy life, untouched by the shadows of her true parentage. That, Elara realized, was her ultimate absolution. In the days and weeks that followed, a subtle shift occurred within Elara. She still attended services, still moved with her quiet grace, but there was a new lightness in her step, a faint, almost imperceptible glow in her eyes. She began to engage more with the community, a hesitant smile gracing her lips during the post-service coffee hour. She even accepted an invitation from Mrs. Henderson for tea, a gesture that sent ripples of quiet surprise through the parish. Father Michael continued to visit her, not as a confessor, but as a friend. They would talk for hours, not about the past, but about the present, about the simple joys of life, about the changing seasons, and the quiet beauty of their shared community. He never revealed Elara's secrets to anyone, honoring the sacred trust she had placed in him. The Miller Journal remained in the library, its pages still holding the coded anguish of Clara, a silent testament to a tragedy only a few now truly understood. The locket, Elara decided, would be buried in her garden, beneath the forget-me-nots, a final, tender farewell to a past she had finally come to terms with. Lydia, thankfully, remained blissfully unaware of the tempestuous origins of her birth. Her childhood had been one of quiet love and unwavering care, a life woven with the threads of Elara's immense sacrifice. Elara found a profound peace in this, knowing that her silent suffering had spared Lydia the pain of a truth that could have shattered her world. The story of the priest who knew her secrets, though she never confessed, became a quiet legend within Father Michael's own heart, a constant reminder of the complex, often heartbreaking, tapestry of human existence. It taught him that sin and salvation were not always straightforward, that sometimes the greatest acts of faith were those performed in silence, bearing burdens unseen, for the protection of others. It reinforced his belief in the profound resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of love, even in its most tragic forms. The quiet, reflective atmosphere of our parish here at Family Secrets Unveiled often reminds us that beneath the surface of every seemingly ordinary life lies a world of untold stories, of silent struggles and incredible strength. Elara's tale is a powerful testament to the enduring human capacity for both sorrow and selflessness, a reminder that the path to redemption is not always found within the confines of a confessional booth, but sometimes in the quiet, unwavering commitment to protect those we love, even at immense personal cost. Her journey, steeped in unspoken grief and a profound sense of duty, underscores the idea that true faith can manifest in myriad forms, often far removed from traditional piety, rooted instead in the raw, messy reality of human relationships and the sacrifices we make for one another. It challenges us to look beyond the obvious, to listen to the whispers of unspoken truths, and to recognize the quiet heroism that often hides in plain sight. And so, we close another chapter of hidden truths and unexpected revelations. The world is full of such stories, waiting to be unearthed, waiting to challenge our perceptions and expand our understanding of the human heart. If Elara's profound journey has resonated with you, if it has sparked a curiosity about the untold narratives that exist all around us, then I invite you to delve deeper. Don't let these tales remain buried in the annals of history or the depths of forgotten memories. Be a part of our community here at Family Secrets Unveiled. Hit that like button if this story moved you. Subscribe to our channel to join us on future journeys into the unknown. And don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss another unveiling of the profound and often haunting secrets that shape our lives. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your heart receptive, for the secrets of the past are always waiting to be discovered.